Good morning, Mattie.
How are you doing, Paul? How's things?
Good.
Not so bad, sure.
What are we on to this week now?
Well, sure, I don't know what do you want to talk about, Paul?
Well, you were telling me there, Mattie, before about the farming and the black leg and the different thing in the law of the land. I was quite intrigued by that.
But sure, we talked about that, so we could just say something about farming in general there, maybe. And,
Yeah.
about the country, sure. So the farming is in a bad situation here at the minute, and there's farmers, every programme you listen to, there's farmers crying out. But so there's all situations out there. Everything seems to be gone negative completely. There's negativity here in the country. And people is crying out for assistance, and evidently they're not getting assistance. That's the way it is. But the farmer, anyhow, he's facing a hard situation, and maybe people doesn't realise what he has to go through, and he has to work nights, and when his cows is calving, and he has to provide for fodder, and he has to try and make good fodder, and the weather is against him completely, And the situation is, we have a situation here where the farmer is being helped, and a greater problem is he's being hobbled. Do you know what I mean? He has a situation here where he's tied on this month. He has to get slurry out, and he has to get all this, farm manure, he has to get all that out. And then he has a situation he has to carry on maybe till into January or into February, have storage. Do you know what I mean? Back in the days, there was none of that problem because there was no greed in the world. And, they got money, and because they got money, they spent money, and they got more cattle. It's more cattle they got. And the situation is always, most situation is less can be more in farming. You know what I mean? Less cattle, do a good job, and there's more to be got out of them, because if you have a scarcity demand for cattle, you'll get a better price for them. Do you know what I mean? So there's a problem there because they feed too much cattle, in the sense that they have housing to put up. If you have them, you can't have many cattle out over the winter, and housing got very expensive. And we have the situation because the cut this time again here started it off now earlier, and it's maybe later on it's going to be finished. I don't know when it's going to be finishing up, but it's more storage. So this farmer, if he can't afford it himself, if he wants to have more cattle, he needs to go into the bank and he needs to get money to get a grant. He thinks because he'll get a grant, he's better off. But he seems to be always spending money in the land because of regulations, and he has no money for himself. He's complaining. That kind of a situation? So he's probably want to think about this, and it's the whole job is a mind-boggling. I have a feeling it's a mind-boggling system, and it has the whole country confused in all aspects. Making regulations. We have a situation here in farming now. Any man that knows the law of the land knows the way he should know the way it should be done. Back in the years we had a law here for the land, obnoxious weeds. It was heavily enforced. The law came out and made you cut these obnoxious weeds. And they're dangerous weeds. Like this ragwood, now they call it ragwood, burrland. It's a most poisonous thing. It's all this yellow one out in the fields, and it's out on your mare in here, and in this time of the year it blows into you. You keep your land, you're trying, and you keep your land clean, and your neighbour is out there and he has a field of dirty, filthy ragwood, and he won't cut it, and he's not enforced to cut it. But he's not your neighbour, we say he's your neighbour, but he's not your neighbour, because he's taken from you, and he's creating more work for you. Do you understand me now?
Yeah.
He's not your neighbour by any means to have a dirty, filthy field of ragwood there. And it's coming in and it's reseeding your land. Do you understand?
That's right, yeah.
It's if it blows with the wind in this time of the year. But the rule was obnoxious weeds was enforced one time. You had to cut this. If you don't keep your land clean, it'll put you out of it. With disease and poison and all kinds of problems. Thistle is the same. There's a scheme here now. I don't know whether all this is deliberate or what the carry on is, or does these people know anything about it at all. You join a scheme here and it says you can't top the land until the 1st of July. You're in trouble here with sheep. There's trishels here. And sheep get sore eyes, and, it's the same for cows. These trishels grow up and they won't go into them and they get sore eyes, and it's another problem for the farmer. Do you know what I mean? And back in the years, there was no sprays, and they went out and they cut these trishels early in the year. They went out with sides and whatever ways they had it working, and they cut them maybe a week. They knew how to do it. Cut them before they went to produce the head. Before they went to produce the seed.
Yeah.
So you automatically got rid of them. Once you cut them in time, they knew when to cut them. And they never got to put up a head. But cutting them when they put the head up, or even spraying them, and they fall there and they reseed the ground because there's enough of sap in the stem to feed them, to materialise to be seed for next year.
Reproduce, yeah.
Reproduce, Paul, that's what it's called. And they're a dangerous thing, Radwood. And if they're in a meadow grass, let them in, and you're making fodder, and they're there, and there's chopper machines and harvesters, and they chop the grass, and they go into a bale or they go into a pit of silage, and they can be dangerous to cattle, and they can poison cattle. In that respect. But you must keep it clean, or it's going to come back on you and bite you. You know what I mean? And it's one of them. And there's another one there, and it's a little one. It's a fern. Ferns now are very dangerous in the land. And farmers, I don't know whether they're wide for all this or not, but oftentimes if you have moory land, or round an owl area where there's moory and round into the field, you could have a swart of ferns, the width of a moor of ferns. And you come along and you rake that and you mix it up, and it's an instant kill, that one, near enough. And it goes into silage. And they'll die suddenly with it, that's what happens, and you lose stock. You have to pay attention here to all situations, and if you see them ferns, don't mow them, and don't leave them if you're topping a field and they're there, don't cut them and leave them lying, because they will poison if cattle have a want to eat them. You know that kind of thing. So there's a million, there's a lot of different things, and then we have a situation, I remember one time I went to do a clean-up job in an estate, and I went to bale the stuff up. A man asked me to bale, and this man asked me to bale up the grass in it, and there was a good lot of it anyhow. It was a kind of in a meadow, and we went to it. I went to it and I looked at it, and he said, you can have the bales and take them away, if you want to. So because anyhow, we had a look at it anyhow, and so walked in exactly and had a look around. But, with the hand of God over you and all this, looked and seen there was yew trees over this place, a big row of yew trees where we were going to bale all this grass and maybe sell it off to farmers, or, to get a few pound, get a few pound back. So I was after, years back when I was a young lad, I remember the story about yew branches. A yew tree is poison. There was a windstorm and yew branches fell down into a field, and this man put his cattle in, and they went and ate the leaves and that, and he lost a couple of cattle with yew poisoning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know whether young lads is watching out for this in farming, or whether they were told about any of this situation, and it's always a learning process, isn't it? You learn the hard way, but if preventative is better than the cure in any situation. So I remember that thing happening anyhow, and there was a man on in life, and he said, there's an antidote for that. If there had to be ivy in the field, I don't know whether it's true or not, but this man said ivy was the antidote for yew poisoning, and he said the cattle most likely, if it was in the field, that it went and got it. This is the nature of them. This is what he was trying to say. It may not be true, but that was the situation, and in all situations there's an antidote. We talked about last week and whatever the situation was, and you know, it's about nearly all situations in life is about antidote. When you go wrong, there's an antidote. So the country has gone wrong, in my opinion. And the only antidote we have for all the sickness in people and chattel and all that, and people may not have thought about it. I said there the last time we were talking, and every time we talk, Paul, I did say, use thinking to know. You know, and then you'll be able to do what you know is right. So, someone said, passed remarks and said, if you thought about it, it'll drive you mad in the head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'll drive you mad in the head. So they didn't bother to think about it. So you don't dismiss the situation if it's important to you. You can research all these things. You can research to get the truth about them. You know, so you won't be negative on it. You know, someone is talking this and someone is talking that. Don't be negative on it. You know, just if it's important to you, and I think everything that's in this country and every situation is important to you because it is your country, and you know, you need to participate in the whole situation. So I wouldn't be negative. I'd never be negative on what someone had said to me. You know, because I learned that younger. Yeah, I mean, you might walk away, but it's on your mind. It's always the reasons why he said this. You know, why did he make this statement if you didn't get it clarified?
Yeah.
So if you think about how you'll clarify it in your own mind, there's always the reason being, you know, the reason why it's this way. Do you understand? And there's all kinds of situations out there, like you mean, in the country. I was looking at the paper there during the week. Strange enough, it's a thing that'll always come to mind. You open the paper there and you see the bull McCabe, you know, he's, you know that kind of thing. The field again, it's always the field, isn't it? Yeah. Well, Ireland is a field too. But having said that, this man reportedly said, I think the top of it was, if I can rightly remember, is when the tide goes out, who'll own this field? You know, this will come up on the paper, the reporter. Well said, like I'd have to say, very well said with the situation, you know. It's something about a piece of land up in the city that it's a community piece of land. Well, it's used for the community. The community don't own it, but it was used for community purposes, you know. I think there's 2 or 3 football clubs or hurling clubs. No, there's 3 or 4 different clubs. And I suppose the young people is using it to learn how to play football and whatever the thing is. But it can be bought for $1 million, right? Some of the clubs can get so much money and some of the clubs can't. And, you know, and then there's a builder, it's worth 10 million to a builder. You know, it's...
Of course.
And all these situations, you know, they do present animosity among neighbours and friends and that kind of a situation.
Of course, yeah.
But who'll get the field? It's only my opinion, and we'll just talk about this. Like, I was just thinking about that now, and to get a good, what would you say, reasonable situation. I'd say now, in first thought of it, well, I'd like to see the people that is using the field, and it's a benefit to the community. You know, it's a great benefit to the community, and it's probably situated in a, I don't know anything about it, but it's probably situated in a good community area. You know, and where are they going to go for a field if they lose this field? You know, if it's in the city, like, where do you go, like? So, I was just thinking about that, like, there'll be ifs and buts, and I suppose these people will come to a right good agreement, and well, hopefully they'll be able to buy this field, you know, no matter what it takes, and they'll be pulling on dragging, and sure, it's only my opinion, but if they join forces, you know, and you know, raise a lot of money here, and even you have to sell shares to the householders in the community, you know, and get them, the whole community involved. And you see, you have a share. If you buy a share here, it's with your house. So if you sell your house, it's an asset to your house. And, you know, the kids, if you have kids that can go down and use this community field. So I'd say all in all, the right benefit of it is, and then you can raise fund membership and whatever, and work it out that you can get a small loan, and run dues and be able to come up with the money every year and own this field and make a whole community happy. That everyone will be back in the same situation and they have a field. There's always options if the people unite, but if they divide, well, someone is going to lose this field and someone is going to be disappointed, and it'd be sad if that field was in a community centre area, that all these people is going to lose this vicinity, this powerful vicinity to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would you not think so? No?
I do, yeah.
And it's a sad situation, but apart from that, the best of luck to them, and I hope they do get work it out, like you mean. To have a good think about it and know about it, and have a good agreement on it, and like you mean, it's shareholders and it's membership and it's, you know what I mean, and no one owns this field. Everyone owns this field the way they use the field. It sounds a good, reasonable way, but that's their business, I suppose. Well, it's everyone's business, but it's probably the best outcome if hopefully it'll work that way. But on the other situation here, we had this man on the Shannon side, Joe Finnegan. He does try to solve a lot of problems, and he does root around and he gets people that can talk about problems, and in the Shannon side there's lots of problems, coming in, farmers and people. There was a woman on there about she went to 3 different yard stations and she couldn't get a yard, and and this was the situation, this is the kind of problems you have, and and there's other people with different problems, and the farmers has different problems. But he does try and get experts in, whoever he thinks, and he was on about solicitors, and the other day about a man that signed his farm over to his son, and his son wasn't farming, and then he wanted to get it back. And the sad thing about it was, if the son isn't agreeable to give it back to him, and even he was agreeable to give it back to him, he'd have to pay money to get it back, but pay this whole rigmarole again about, inheritance and whatever it is. So the whole job is complicated, and but he did talk then about the country, this country as a whole. Everyone says, at the top they'll say, this is a hell of a country and a great country and, a powerful country and a big lot of progress is in it, going on in it. But I remember the time here back, maybe in the 70s, like I said, maybe before to you, Paul, we didn't need for anything. We had everything, bar oil and rubber and tea. And we had no debt as such. I couldn't even get to figure out how much money we owe. It's trillions of money we owe. Do you know what I mean? And there's a big windfall of money here, and there's money here. And it seems to me that if they're doing that well, if they're after doing that well for so many years, how come we owe so much money? Do you know what I mean? And how come they sell out assets? I understand they sell out assets. Like, it's everyone's country and it's everyone's decision. So if there's a big windfall here, why not pay off the debt? If this money is here, just a windfall comes, why not pay off this debt? Claim your country back.
Yeah.
Like, if they don't do something about it, will be the same. Who'll own this country when the tide goes out too, This is something that come to mind to me, with rules and regulations, and to see the situation we have with the farm backbone of the nation, and all you can say about this is, if every man listens to the law of the land and looks at the 10 Commandments and has a good thing down through it, and looks at all these 6 deadly sins, he'll sort his problems out, there's no doubt about it. This is the law that was given with the man that created this world or this land. He left a rule in there. And Anders goes wrong here in that situation. If you look at all them things there, it's self-inflicted. Would you not say, Paul? It's all self-inflicted. If you disobey them rules, you're in trouble. It's a bloody recipe for disaster. That's what it is. But them is the rules on here. And anyone that doesn't know the commandments, you can research all that. And if you're never sure about anything, you can go and you can research. You know, there's 10 commandments and there's 6 deadly sins, and I'm telling you, they are deadly, and they have caused a lot of trouble in this country. And that's one of them. There is, let's see, it's lust and it's greed. Them is 2 of the ones that has caused an awful lot of, when you think about it, you know. Lust, it's done serious destruction. You know, it starts off here, and there's predators. They become predators, going from one place to another. Then they become beasts. And then there's death to destroy everything they ever had. That's a dangerous one, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah.
You know, and then there's greed. You know, greed. Everyone wants it's covetousness and it's greed, and it's all in the one thing. You know, and everyone wants, the farmer. He wants more cattle, and he wants more of a workload, and he's making no headway. You know what I mean? He's in a situation now where he has more cattle. He has to go and put up more storage with where the rules is to hold the slurry over the winter. You know what I mean? And I'd always say to lads, you know, I'd be talking to my lads in the Killy at night, and I'd always say, less can be more if it's managed better. You know, you'll have a longer grass season, you'll have less winter feed to make, and you'll get a better price for your cattle, because there's nothing like a good scarcity, you know, to get the price up. You know, that is a fact. Like, I mean, if you have reasonable thinking about it, you know, and you have less cattle, so you have less shedding, you need less shedding, so you have less loans. Do you know what I mean? And you need less machinery about a place. So I was just thinking about it there, myself and another man we were talking about it there, and we were just figuring it out, like, I mean. Like, I mean, if you're feeding a cow, it's understandable. You're going to have to feed her for 7 or 8 months, winter feeder, with the way the climate, with the way the negative winter, the way the farmers, I'll say the farmers and every other industry, the plundering they've done to the land and the country. It's not just the farmer. If you put one cow to 2 acres, you have to feed her for the winter. You know, and you'll probably provide feed for herself for the winter. And you'll rear her calf and you'll be selling him on. He won't be there for the winter. So, in my opinion, to do the job well and to not be loading the place with fertilizer and poisoning the land, you know, you'll do a good job, and you'll have an organic situation, and you'll have a good product to sell. And I believe that the people, the housewife that's rearing a lot of young children, she'll go for that if it's at a reasonable price. You know, it's the best food. Why feed nonsense to your kids, you know, and you know what I mean? And feeding a load of drug situation to your kids, and well, as we talked about, it degenerates people. Like, yeah, that's evidently so. You know, drugs degenerate people. And why not generate them? Like, go organic, generate people. The people will be thinking clearly. They won't go down and commit these sins. And, like, I mean, everything will be perfect, like, I mean. You know, it's all about the God in the man. You know, the first commandment. If he does what he knows is right. Do you know what I mean? And, like, I mean, if I do it right and you do it right, Paul, well, you'll be giving me life and I'll be giving you life. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
And if we keep mixing it up, we neither win nor live, do we? If we keep going on the way we are, we're neither going to win nor live. There's going to be more sickness, and the land is gone negative on you, and it'll probably, it can't get any better with the state of the people and the state of the way they're handling the situation. So I'd advise people like him, and I think it's not fair that young people, they're at a serious disadvantage, and it's not fair to young people to know where they're going and to not know these rules, the law of the land and the commandments, you know, and the deadly sins. Above all things, the deadly sins, you know. And they should research them, and they should get them up there, and you can research anything in, there's, what do you call that? Is it biology in the nature, and you can research that, and you'll know your pluses and your minuses, and you'll know what you should do and what you shouldn't do. because they're dangerous situations, you know. And I fear, like, we're going so long down the road in the negative here, and the country is negative. They'll tell you it's positive, but it's only positive with greed. You know, it's the greed of it, and the sinfulness of it, and you know, this man on Shannon's side, he said, we're so many trillion in debt, he said, for our sins. No, it was well stated, wasn't it? For our sins. It's a sinful thing to be in debt. We're so many trillion in debt for our sins. I know he emphasised for our sins. It was well stated. So he goes to the trouble and he says, we got our team in and they met it up here, and he said that every man, woman and child in this country owes £40,000. That's overall. That's what the country is in debt. You know,
Jeez.
This is it, like a man. So why not bring it down a little bit, and if the surplus money pay off the debt, and make sure the people should stand here, make sure there's no more borrowings from nowhere, like I mean, borrowing money for this and borrowing money for that. And the fact of the matter, we got these subsidies and all that, but to bring regulations, there was no word of that when we were going to be regulated with this money. So there's a breach of contract here, in my opinion. And I'll say another thing about it. I remember when we were joining up for all this, there was a man, I think he was Fischl or something, I don't know what his name was rightly, but he said that this money was here. This money was going to do a good turn. It was going to give the small farmer a great opportunity, and it's for the small farmer, so that he'll have a better standard of living and he'll be able to educate his kids better, you know. And he'd have a good standard of living. But it seemed to me it'd come here and it was twisted around again. And a small farmer we talked is a man with 50 acres or under it. But a man with 400 acres got the subsidy. And the little lad only got the crumbs that fell from the rich man's table again. The same as always, you know. And it's a sad day for a country when this is it. They tell me now, I don't know how true it is, that for every euro that comes into the country, the department gets a euro to throw a heap of nonsense out at you. Paperwork. Mind-boggling and confusing the people of old Ireland. Like, that's what it is. I don't know what you call that, Paul. Creating jobs where there's no needs to create them. What is it?
Quangos.
Quangos. You know what I mean? They're bringing
NGOs,
them. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
I never heard that before. But there's some kind of a situation there. They're bringing young lads off the land and giving them apartment jobs, and they're sending home these letters to their fathers and mothers, and they're confusing the whole issue. I don't know who's running this show, but they're definitely not value for money, in my opinion. And this needs to be cut out. There's another thing there. There's a Board B thing. You know, if you join up with Board B here and you fill a heap of work and you keep everyone that applied in the department, you'll get 20 cents more for your chattel or for your sheep.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, they'll do you 20 cents. Now, when you tell me this country is going well and it's been run well, what would you think, Paul?
Yeah.
So there's a load of crap, the whole thing. And there's a load of headless chickens out here. You know, it's not fair, like, I mean, it's not fair to farmers. And, like, I mean, it seems to me it's a mind-boggling situation. It's a silent war, and there's people dying, farmers dying every day on account of this mind-boggling. You know, it is a mind-boggling situation for farmers and for the country. And all the farmers are dying a little. They're getting confused and they don't know where to turn to. And I'd say it's time to go back and look at the law of the land. And, you know, the man left it there. He put the land there. He left the laws for everyone to obey. Let you be in the farm or let you be in the country. Them is the rules. And if you break them rules, you're in the wrong. It's like any situation, marriage or on. If you have a marriage, if you start off wrong and it goes wrong, you don't add to your problem. You don't start off wrong again. Or you go to build a house and it falls and you don't start off and you make sure you build it right the next time. Would you not agree, Paul? But it seemed to me this doesn't happen here. Well, it doesn't happen, does it? The same situation falls out again. Like we talked about the housing there, the man building for 50,000 and 60,000, they got only 60,000 houses a year. But what the hell good are they? Like I mean, I said, like I mean, there'll be no one here. But if he doesn't build affordable houses that people can afford, and if he doesn't build houses for first-time buyers, what's the use? You make another greed situation. You build houses and you put them up at a price and you put them up for auction, and there's speculators here and they'll buy all these houses, and they'll be no good to know, and the price of rent will go sky high, and the houses will go up in property, in price. You know what I mean? So it's one of them situations, and so this is what I'm saying about the greed of it. You know, when it can be worked out and try and get positive, and you know, someone doesn't buy a house, someone doesn't need a house, so they don't qualify to buy this house. You know, and they're built at a affordable price. So young people can accommodate, and they won't be all their life paying for houses, and maybe the next generation having to pay for them. And I'd say people should get kind of sensible about building houses. They should try and build a nice, comfortable house, and build it and plan it that you can extend to it, and don't get out a big loan until you need it. And you know, and as you go along, if you have 3 or 4 kids or whatever, you build a wing onto it, and build it in perspective that you can attach simply. Do you know what I mean? Build on another wing. And, you know, always use thinking to know, and you won't be in a bad state. Keep out of the banks. The banks is twisting and turning, in my opinion, here. And they have everyone that don't want cash, and they have everyone pushed out on the street to do your business on the street. To talk about a friendly banking. You know, there's no such thing anymore. They push you out on the street to do your banking on the street, and they charge you big money. And young people that got into this system, the card, it's handy. You know, you win and get a cup of coffee, and you use your card, and you get this, and you don't have to carry cash. You get your petrol, or whatever the case may be. But it doesn't suit me. You know, cash is my way. Every man, he earns his cash, and it's no one's business what he has or what he does. He worked for it, and he's entitled to have it, and he's entitled to spend it what way he wants to spend it. And traceability on all your money. That you can't go out to do nothing without them watching you. You know, like I said the last time about the farmers being watched. We should have cameras. Them civil servants in there, in my opinion, they're all working for the farmer and for the working class people down in the country. They are working for them. They're employed by them. I can't see why they should have the cameras. You know, you're down in your field and they're watching you here, what you're at. We should have cameras watching them. Without us, they wouldn't have that money. And we shouldn't be paying for services we're not getting either. You know, people is complaining on the radio, they're paying every week for services. And, you know, the system says you pay, you pay, you pay. A man is guilty till he proves himself innocent. This is it. But the law of the land says a man is innocent till he's proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It's on you. If you want to prove me guilty, you better have positive information. You know, that's it. Is that so?
Yeah.
You can't choose a man. You can't say to a man here, you owe me so much. Prove it. Well, like I'll say prove it. Or I'll hold you to it till hell freezes over or you say different. Yeah. And you know what that means. You better think about that now. Because I will be holding you. You know, that's the way life is, Paul. Yeah. You know, and that's a fact. But change laws just gather in money. And people to run. They're fretting the country here with a tax system. People had a few pounds saved and they ran in with it and they looked for more and more and more. So it's disgraceful what happened in this country. And it's time people cop down to it. Would you not say so?
Of course, yeah.
You know, when you don't clean your field of ragwood, you're offending your neighbour. You're taking from him. You know what I mean? And when you force your animals, you're taking from your neighbour that's a decent man. You know, he's trying to be honourable, but you're not being honourable with him. You know, if you don't clean your land, you're not his neighbour. Like, I mean, if you're inconveniencing him, you're not his neighbour. You know, there's all them kind of situations. You know, that it's about being right about things. And if everyone goes right and looks at the commandments and we'll put this whole country, we'll go organic. It's the people's call, it's not mine. You know, it's not mine, but it's the people's call to unite. And anyone that doesn't want to unite, like, I mean, well, I'd say he'd be ignorant if the people go ahead. And what you do is this is the law here. It's written in there, the books, like I mean, that it's our duty to inform the enlightened ignorant. You know, to enlighten them as you go along. If they're ignorant and they won't listen, you try. But if they won't listen, how do you enlighten them, like you mean? You know, they walk away, and so that's the kind of a situation it is. And so it's better for people to cop on. And the antidote is for all situations here with people and cattle and is organic. You clean up a whole dirty mess. And I'd say not any more about it, Paul, because we have a few jobs to do, and so you understand the way it is.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that, and we'll come back on some of them highlights that you mentioned earlier on.
But I'd say to people, research.
Yeah.
Research, and you'll know. You don't take anyone's word for it if you're not sure. And think about it. And don't let the thinking, that's what you have your brain for. That's what it's for. You see, it's not your phone, it's yourself. If you're going down to vote here tomorrow, to make a good vote, you need to think about it. Like, I mean, it's only another situation. Like, I've got a list, you know. I've never met these people for voting the last time. A list telling you what they are and what they are. I never met them. Like, I mean, it's a list of paper. You know, come on a platform and see a man what he is. I'd like to see, you know, I was talking to a man the other day there, but I'd like to see a lad going for politics. I'd like to see that he'd be a man that worked on the ground. He worked in a factory, or he worked on the land, or he worked in some kind of a situation in the hospital or something. A man with experience. We'll say a man in his 40s, 40 years of age. He's after doing 20 years experience on land. And he'd be the man I'd propose to go into government to rule out, to lead a country. Because he knows what the people is about on the ground, and he knows the rights and wrongs of it. You understand, Paul? So I'd leave it at that now. So,
Thanks, Matty.
well, thanks yourself, Paul. The best of luck to him.